Welcome back to another episode of Tiff4Tat, a CPQ podcast from Pierce, Washington. I am Tiff. This is
And I
Tat.
am Tat.
And we have another guest with us today. His name is Josh Pearson. He's been in the CPQ space since the beginning of time. And he usually is a project manager on projects, but he has held multiple roles. Josh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, thanks, Tiff, and nice to see you again, Tat. Yeah, pleasure to meet everyone. I live in Missoula, Montana, and like Tiff said, I'm a principal consultant with Pierce, Washington. I haven't been in the space forever, but it's been over a decade. It's been about 12 years, and what's been cool about that is I kind of caught the wave of SaaS, right? When everything started taking off with service providers and products and manufacturing companies. So it's been a really cool ride here the last decade or so.
Yeah, great. Well, we're excited to have you on. Okay, Josh, so let's do a little warm-up question.
Okay.
How did you get into the quote to cash space?
I'm a non-traditional student, so I didn't get a degree until I was almost 30. So it was in 2012. I was leaving my undergraduate, and I really wasn't sure I wanted to go. I just knew it needed to have a fruitful future. And we had a firm in my hometown of Missoula, Montana, that was hiring at the time. The group was called Advanced Technology Group, ATG. And they were hiring, and they were willing to take chances on young college students like me. And I was the 12th employee there. And when I got my start, what made us special was we were a true billing and quoting consultancy, meaning we didn't care so much about the software as we did about the underlying processes, best practices around the whole industry. So for the first 5 years or so of my career, I kind of bounced all over the place, did a lot of process mapping, data mapping, UX design, business analysis, you name it. Like I ran RFPs. We just kind of went where our clients needed to. We had a good advisory practice. So we really carved out a corner for ourselves, being trusted advisors in the space of the Fortune 1000 and being able to go in and help a company navigate their complexities and provide meaningful recommendations. And then oftentimes those recommendations led to software. And if we had a skill set matchup, we would oftentimes be asked to go in and help them with those software implementations. So it wasn't really until about 2016, 2018 that we really started to get vendor specific. And that started with the movement of Steelbrick and Salesforce CPQ, right? And now RLM. But it was about that time we saw our pipeline grow less away from advisory and more towards software solutions. So really for about the last, I want to say 6-7 years, maybe more, I almost predominantly focus on software implementations. But it was really that start in process that really helped me grow my expertise in the space.
That's great. There are so many great people that came from ATG. What an awesome story.
So ATG, is that the software, or is that there's another software called ATG. Is that that software you were working for, the company?
So Steelbrick, we did a lot of work with big machines back in the day, before Oracle acquired them. And when those smart individuals broke off and worked to build Steelbrick, we had already had the account relationships with that group, right? So right off the bat, when Steelbrick was launched, we were the primary implementation partner for Steelbrick projects. And so that's what kind of fueled our growth, right? So when Salesforce acquired Steelbrick, we were right there at the front of the line to be the pioneers of helping them get that product off the ground. And today, when folks are taking, the Salesforce CPQ certification, we helped write that exam. So we were kind of one of the first in this space there to help them get that going.
Yep. And then ATG was ultimately acquired by Cognizant.
Mm-hmm. And ATG is no more. Unfortunately, it was November of last year. It was formally announced that, as part of any acquisition, right? There was always a long-term strategy for the brand, to eventually absorb and up into Cognizant. That decision was made back in November of last year. So If you Google ATG, you look for the website or any reference to it, you won't find it anymore. It's all under folded under Cognizant Revenue Operations, and a lot of those talented folks here in Missoula that work for ATG still work for Cognizant, and they're still here in Missoula. We have an office, and we just continue on solving all these awesome challenges for our clients.
It's kind of sad that ATG branding doesn't exist anymore. I mean, I understand it, but ATG is so legendary in the ecosystem that it's sad for it to be totally gone.
Yeah, it's definitely, I know it's not common in the space for anyone to stay with a consultancy for more than a few years, especially 10 years, right? It's just we don't see that a lot anymore. And so it really was my family. I didn't go too much into my background, but prior to my college education, I spent my whole life in hospitality, in a number of different ways. But so it was really like my family, right? I grew into a professional with that organization. And when you're the 12th employee in the door, and there's only 11 other people to talk to, you really do feel like a family at the end of the day, right? And we saw that slow growth and evolution. There was 20 one day, then there was 35, then there was 55. Then at some point, probably somewhere between 150 and 300, I stopped counting. But the organization did get very big eventually, and that personalization kind of slowed down. And those are some of the growing pains any company goes through at that size. But that's okay. I'm here now, and I'm loving working with Pierce Washington and this crew here, and getting a chance to be with you today.
Yeah, great. Well, it reminds me of Tat's story. Tat, how many people were at Pierce Washington when you started?
I was probably, well, I think I was the employee. I was probably the first employee. So there's really like 3 or more people, before me. I was the fourth person in the company. So I was the first, really, the other people are the partners, so they don't count. So I'm the first employee.
That's right, they don't count.
So so I've been here for a long time. So like you said, it's really, and the company has been growing. The last few years has been very dramatically. So I do agree. When you I used to work for consulting companies. I'm used to big companies before. I didn't really like that experience. But being in a small company is much more. You make impact, right? So. So, whatever you do makes a difference. So, I feel more satisfactory. I feel like you said, it's more like a family. So it's a different experience, than just, it's not a job anymore. So I don't really feel like, oh, going to work, every day. But it's like something that I like to do. So it's very different. I agree with you, Josh. That being the small company is much more like a family. So.
And that's part of the challenge in the organization. How do you keep the magic, right? How do you keep that growing as you scale? And no doubt we will have to answer that challenge as well. But now you know a little bit more about me and where I kind of got my start. And I don't plan on leaving the industry anytime soon either. There's lots of challenging opportunities out there. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. And that's part of what I love about just what we do is just, it's never ending. It's an evolving ecosystem. When you think you've solved it, it's going to change, and we're going to need to adapt, and we're going to need to solve that new problem. And that's going to happen in perpetuity as long as business continues to adapt, grow, and strategize, right?
That's right. Yeah, the actual business problem is not going away.
No,
it's not.
Yeah.
But the tools change and evolve for sure.
Yeah. And that was sort of, what I felt like made it special for a long time. I don't know if I should tell this story. I'm going to tell it anyways. I used to go, but I used to do process analysis and implementations with minimal training, right? Like back 5, 8, 7, 8 years ago, a lot of product companies, they have training courses, they can put consultants through it, but that was kind of our thing. Like we had enough domain expertise. It was very easy for any of us to go fly somewhere, spend 2 weeks with the product team and become an expert on something. Just because if you have a good teacher and you already know the underlying framework, the tool's not that hard to learn. Underlying code principles, database structures, what may be. But yeah, we did that all the time. I thought Apttus was going to be the lead CPQ solution for a long time. I put my hat in the ring for that. And I went deep with Apttus for a long time, CPQ and CLM solutions. but no, eventually Salesforce CPQ bought them all or won them all out.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, cool. Do you have any questions for us, Josh?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Tiff, what's your favorite kind of problem to solve?
I think about that kind of in two buckets. So bucket number one is problems that users have. And I know that this is kind of general, but I think the areas that I have felt the most rewarded in is solving problems for users that decrease the amount of time that they have to be in the system. So if we can take something from, 20 clicks down to 5 clicks, sometimes it's not the most technically difficult thing to achieve, but if you can do that for a user, man, they just like their world is just, they're so happy, and it can really be mind-blowing for them, because what it comes down to is everybody just wants to do their job, right? And if you can make that person's job easier for them, then that's the real win. On the flip side, technically, anything having to do with math. I'm very much a numbers girl. I think you both know this about me already, but anything that like gets me into an Excel spreadsheet, or anything that like, we're talking about decimal precision, or proration proration strategies, or different mathematical things. I really, really like to nerd out on that. But I do know that that's not everybody's cup of tea. So I've learned to zip it in some scenarios for sure. But left to my own devices, I would just sit and do math in an Excel spreadsheet until the end of time.
I know a few clients that would love to work with you. You're sure you're missing your calling to be working more in the finance space with invoice and revenue systems?
Oh, I would love that too.
I had a joke for a long time that because CPQ is complex, right? We all know that, but
Yeah.
billing is like 10x complex, in my opinion, right? Because you think about the lead to cash spectrum and where CPQ fits in the process. Lead generation, generating quotes, generating numbers. Yeah, it has to be accurate. It has to be presentable. It has to be efficient. But at that point, the customer hasn't actually transacted anything with you yet, right? And it's at that point when they get their invoice, that has to be 100% accurate. You can't mess around with that. If it's 1 penny off, you're messing with somebody's bottom line. And I've been on those clients, I've run those projects with those clients, right? Where you're migrating hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue between systems, and you've got the precision that. So Tiff, I think about your math. The decimal precision really matters at that point.
Yes. Taxes really matter at that point. They can't be estimated anymore.
Right.
Really matter. Yeah.
So Josh, I do have a question for you. What makes quote to cash exciting for you, and what drives your passion to work in this space?
It's a good question. I feel like my answer might be what you expect, but a lot of it has to do with the people, but not just the people you work with, like from our company, like both of you, right? Like you're both fantastic to work with, but the client as well. I just feel like in the space we're in, at the level of play we're in, everybody you work with is talented, right? And it becomes clearer and clearer to me as the years go on, and you meet new clients and you meet new organizations, that there's a reason these companies are so successful, right? You get to meet some really special people who are really good at their jobs, and it's just clear why they're so good at their jobs. And then I meet really amazing people like you and Tiffany, right, who are amazing problem solvers, and just to be a part of that, right? To be in a room with people trying to solve really complex problems, like that's just fun, right? There's nothing boring about that. And getting a chance to do that again and again in new ways. I used to have a saying a long time ago for people that were on my team, people who were either maybe new to consulting or maybe were struggling in their role, but I just said, hey, don't worry about it, because the best part about this job is there's change, right? So if you don't like what you're doing, just, fake it till you make it, because eventually you're not going to be doing this role anymore. You're going to be doing something completely different, and you may love it. So I always try to encourage folks not to look at the immediate horizon, because they might be doing something that's right in front of them that's maybe not the best, or it's maybe not exactly what they want to do, but that's okay. It's just one project, it's one client, you'll move on. And then the reverse
Yeah,
of it, yeah.
that's
Oh,
kind of, the exciting thing about being consultant, right? Being a consultant, I mean, even a big project, you're not going to be there for 5 years. At the
mhm.
most, maybe 1.5, 2 years, right? And after that, then you're going to go on a new project. You're going to have new problems. So it sounds like what you're echoing I used to say that I used to work with what's it called, a web method consultant. We were joking around with each other. I say, we are not good with, at our jobs because we couldn't keep our jobs for more than 6 months. Because at the time, I mean, you would go on project to project every 6 months. And then we always say, okay, 6 months, new project, new problem. That makes life exciting because you don't know, what's going to happen in 6 months.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we end up accelerating faster because we're not doing the same thing, right? So like I feel like I've reinvented myself a dozen times in a dozen years,
Yeah.
right? Because every time it's a new culture, it's a new project team, sometimes a new tool. It's right when you think you got to figure it out, you go back to step one, take what you learned from the past portion of your life, apply it to the new one, but get ready to make some new rules,
Yeah.
And that's the other half of that learning, or that, I guess my yin and yang statement is, if you like what you're doing, too bad, because it's going to change and you'll have to adapt and grow anyways. uh, and then, Tiffany, I want to echo like something you said too. I think part of it for me is trying to draw some meaning to my own life and the work we do. We're not doctors, right? We're not saving lives. It's not that we need to be to feel like we're doing something meaningful, but like I liked what you said, because we are improving lives, right? We're hopefully, if we're doing our jobs right, the end result is somebody has a more productive workday. Somebody has less frustration with the software we're using. Somebody's happier at the organization, or as a result of something we did. And that organization is hopefully more productive as a whole, and like that's meaningful, and I think I rest well at night knowing that that's the type of stuff we're doing, and we're making an impact on people's lives there.
Love that. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was gonna say, Tat, I had a question for you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right. Um, if we're thinking about, CPQ implementations, quote to cash implementations, from your experience, you know, what do companies need to be thinking about when they're getting ready for these? Like, what are the things that stand out to you?
I mean, CPQ or quote to cash, when you think about it, a lot of companies, kind of run on spreadsheets, and that's nice. And then, it's flexible, you can do a lot of things, whatever you want to do, you do. And then you come up with a lot of innovative solution, to solve different problems.
Mhm.
And when it comes to quote to cash, now, you implement a system. There's certain things that are, that you're used to. It may change because, when you have a spreadsheet, a lot of things you do as ad hoc. There's, people do solve problem one day may be different from another person trying to solve the same problem. So you may have a lot of inconsistency in your process. So to me, I mean, when you start talking about code to cash, CPQ, you really need to start thinking about, what you want your future business process to be, and how you can improve the efficiency of the company. To me, that's a very important thing for people to think about, to say, how do we get people to come to an agreement to say, let's move all in the same direction, to get, to solicit, or to get to the same, get on the same train, to try to solve the problem is not easy. You really need to sit back and think about, okay, what is our objective here? What do we want our future process to be? And what problem are we trying to solve, with a CPQ or code to cash system? Those are the very important questions that you need to, prepare to answer, and then get everybody to agree to, that is the right answer for the future. That's very important. And the other thing is, because a lot of times, you have when you have this connected process, your data is not centralized, and you have to think about, okay, how do we centralize our data so that we all have the same, we've all look at the problem the same way. That's also very, very important. To me, a lot of the project that I have difficulty with, in the past is like when people disagree or when two groups cannot come to an agreement, then you try to fit CPQ in there. It's very difficult because, one person wants to do it one way, another person wants to do it another way. It makes adoption very difficult because if you implement one way and half the people didn't want it, and then you want implement the other way, the other half the people didn't want it, right? So getting people to agree is very challenging, in CPQ quote to cash projects. Those are the things that people have to think about, I think.
Yeah, great. Can I add on to that?
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like the two biggest things that companies need to understand and have worked out before embarking on a CPQ project are one, their products, and two, their pricing. What do you sell and how do you sell it? Because if you don't know what your products are, you don't know how to bundle them, you don't know what the required components are. Certainly, if you don't know your pricing, then you have to kind of pause the CPQ project and do a sidebar project. And sometimes it really is a full-blown project to figure out what is the product and what is the pricing, especially pricing. I've seen, that can be 6 months to a year of consulting and market study and research and testing out and, all of that before you have exactly how you want to price your products. So I would say definitely know what you sell and know how you sell it before you embark on a CPQ project. And then the other things that I think are important, maybe a little bit to a lesser extent, but things that I've seen go well or not go well in projects is one, it really helps if you have your ERP system set up and running in the way that you want it to run before adding on the CPQ component. I've seen it before where companies try to implement both pieces at the same time, and it can be a little bit messy. And if you change one thing in one system, then the other system has to know about it, and everything is in flight. So it can take more time to do that. And then finally, I would say resources. So internal resources in the company that actually have bandwidth to commit to a CPQ project, because it really does take people and resources to sit down and work with us and tell us all about their business and what the requirements are. So
I would agree with you both. It's how many engagements have you been on where the contract's signed, you're on site, we're doing discovery, and we realize these, what feel like simple steps haven't been taken and the impact it has, right? It's sometimes it's hard to understand, but like you can't go into day one build without a product catalog strategy, right? You can't have an efficient discovery phase without a pricing and product catalog strategy. And sometimes, like you said, Tiff, I feel like those can take weeks by themselves. I've seen them take months, depending on, the complexity of the organization. But yeah, those are wise words to live by for sure.
yeah, great. Okay, so I have a question for you, Josh. Here we go.
Yeah.
What is the hardest problem you have ever helped a company solve?
I'm going to give you a very consultancy answer, I feel like. They're all hard. That's right. That's why we get paid. But so maybe to preface an answer with some context, as a project manager, now you have to remember I'm a project manager by trade. I haven't always been a PM, but I've spent most of my career as a PM. Most of the challenges I'm solving are people and organizational challenges, right? So I'm not the architect, I'm not the developer, I'm not the designer. So I can't put my hat on something specific, but I feel like the hardest challenges, I'm going to say challenges because I can't think of a specific one, but the hardest challenges I feel like I'm faced with are organizational challenges. Just when you think about how you're structuring teams, and it gets exponentially more complex when you're fit within programs. So some of the hardest things I feel like I'm challenged or faced with as a project manager is how you work effectively with not just your own team, because that can be hard by itself. You could have 5, 10, 15, 20 people on a single team trying to implement one part of an arm of a solution, but you might be working in a program with 4 other teams of the same size, right? So being on a common task management framework, release framework, coding standards, testing standards, and thinking through that whole plethora of ways teams need to work together, that's what jumps off the page at me. And I could think about the client I'm working with now. I could think about my last two clients, but it's almost the same in every account. Like, unless a client is really willing to invest in a really strong program management discipline, sometimes this is why folks like Deloitte are brought in, right? Because they specialize in this. They sometimes just program manage large implementations, but you really see the effects, right? The moment you run up against the wall on something you didn't think through, like we have a coordinated change between 5 teams to make one function work, but nobody has a mechanism or a framework to see how that works because we didn't think it would happen. But so I felt like a very consultancy answer. I hope I didn't disappoint, but
Oh, that's okay.
I feel like those are the toughest ones. It's really just getting people, like Tat said it before. It's getting people aligned, right?
Yeah.
A lot of what I do is listen and just try and meet the needs of the people around me, whether that's my client, whether that's my project team, whether it's internal stakeholders, but it's really understanding the drivers and the motivators and trying to find the intersection between all of that. That I like it. It's fun. I'm a people person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, after being
CPQ, go
project,
ahead.
no, I just want to say this really quickly and then over to you, Tab. But after having been on a project with you, Josh, I can say that not only do you like it, but you are very, very talented at it.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. It comes with practice though, right? And I say that to all my project management friends out there. It's try not to be discouraged by one failure or even multiple failures. You take something from each failure, you move forward, you learn from it, you move on, and we grow. That's all we can do. We're all people, right?
Pat, what were you
Yeah,
going to say?
just yeah. I actually it's a follow-on question. I see it. Like a lot of CPQ project I get into. A lot of companies say, "Oh, we don't have a project manager yet. We are hiring a new project manager
Yeah.
for this project." What do you think? What are the things that you see that if somebody wants to hire a project manager for CPQ project, what are the things that they should be looking for? Because does it make does it make any just say if a project manager is a project manager, it doesn't matter if they have CPQ experience or not, or does it say, or that do you think that okay, some CPQ experience would probably be very
Yeah.
important?
That's a good thought. Maybe it depends. It depends on the autonomy they need to be able to work under. So like what I mean by that is, or as a client hiring a project manager to run critical functions that I'm not going to be privy to as part of my role or maybe my scope of responsibilities, and there go like there's maybe some qualifications that person needs to have, or more is it they're finding a counterbalance or a counterpart for me to work with so we can work together effectively and make sure the project goes smoothly. Like my answer is similar in both, in that when I'm interviewing, I'm looking more for soft skills. If I'm being honest, I feel like
Mhm.
most technical skills can be taught. I don't care if you can write a contract, do a financial report or whatever, like I can teach you all of that.
Yeah.
You do what you say you're going to do. Can you be confident? Can you lead a team? Can you lift team members up? Can you coach? Those are the things I feel like that are really important for a good project
Yeah.
manager. If you don't possess those traits, people aren't going to want to work with you. It's tough, but I don't. That's my thought.
Yeah, that's interesting because that, like, the funny thing is a lot of times when I interview people, because people say, oh, he's an architect, have to prepare for, hard questions. I never ask hard questions. I always just, basically a chit chat, just kind of gauge what they have done. And a lot of people are surprised by why are you not asking heavy technical questions? Technical, like in CPQ, technical skill I can teach. People can learn very quickly. But
Yeah.
your background, you can't teach that. That's who you are. And if you don't have that that skill set, it's very hard for you to attain in a short time.
Yeah, I
So
love that. Yeah, it's how we've all done interviews. It's more, and I when I go to universities and I talk, I always tell college students the same thing. I'm like, recruiters don't care about your answer; they care about how you got to your answer.
yeah,
Right? It's that journey. It's that pause. It's that thinking, because that's what we do. We're critical thinkers. We get put in tough situations all the time without the right answer. So it's more important we have a framework to get there. So like sometimes I just like to ask open-ended questions just to see how somebody, thinks, like how do they problem solve? I don't know, Tiff, like what's your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely want to know. I do ask technical questions because I understand what the level of their technical expertise is for sure, especially if I'm hiring an architect. But certainly I want to know if they can talk and if they can be engaged and if they have the capacity to learn.
Mhm.
I always look for people who at some point in the interview say, I don't know the answer to that question, because I think that that says a lot, right? It says that they don't just BS their way through things, and they can say that, right? Like, I think that that's a really strong thing to be able to confront the fact that you don't know everything.
Yeah,
But
it is. That's the ultimate sign of maturity, being able to say you're wrong in a very, very vulnerable place. Yeah.
totally. So I always like to get the interview to the point where they say, I don't know, or I kind of watch to see if they invent an answer or if they do say, those words, I don't know. But of course, consulting in especially what we do in particular, tech consulting is really a combination between people or art and
Mhm.
science, right? It's that mixture of art and science. So I'm always looking for both. Are they personable? Can they have conversations? Do they interrupt? Are there long pauses? Are they looking at me? Is kind of a hard one to do virtually, but you can always tell if they're paying attention or if they're, distracted. And then, yeah, do they have the tech chops?
Yeah. And we all ultimately, at the end of the day, can we be locked in a room together for 10 hours and not kill each
Right.
other? Really is what we're all thinking.
Annoy me in the first 15
You,
minutes.
you got to do the lock in a room test. If they can't pass the lock in a room test. No, while we were thinking there, just kind of switch gears a little bit if we're okay on that topic. Tiff, I wanted to learn a little bit more about you and just taking it outside with the cash solutions, being experts in your space. What do you do for fun? What do you do in the weekends?
Yeah, thanks. I think Tat got this question last time, so I'm excited to get it this time. Um, so outside of work, I am a mother and a wife. So I spend a lot of time with my family. We are also fortunate enough to have grandparents for our kids locally. So our family is really about 10 people that come over on Sunday night dinner and vacationing and stuff like that. So we're fortunate in that respect. And I end up spending a lot of time with family. But, just going back to that idea of merging art and science, I feel like as far as hobbies go, I definitely gravitate towards those hobbies that merge art and science. So things like cooking, for example, I love cooking. Josh, me and you have talked about this before, but one of the things that I love to do with my kids is introduce them to cultures through cooking.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah.
We do project cooking together, like bolognese or black mole was one that we did that took 3 days. But it's a lot of fun, and we put on like the music to go along with it. Um, so that's really fun. And then we do a lot of gardening too, just around our house, like landscaping and gardening stuff. And the kids are always like really, really excited when the thing that they planted finally like blooms. It grows a flower and blooms. Like their eyes just like get really big. And anyway, so I love doing that with them. And then I would be remiss if I did not mention Disney World, which you guys both know about me.
How often do you go? Do you
Oh
have
my,
a season ticket?
are you really gonna make me admit to the number publicly recorded? No, I mean, really, we do go a lot. We do have annual passes. Our whole family has annual passes. Um, and we're about an hour and a half away, and my kids are 3 and 6, so it's perfect, Disney World.
All boys,
2 boys, yep.
2 boys.
2 boys, yep. And anyway, so it's perfect. We can, we do a lot of just like single day trips. We'll drive out there on Saturday morning and then come home Saturday night. And, it's a good way to get my steps in. We're doing our step challenge at Pierce, Washington right now. So that's always at least 10, 15,000 steps if I go out to Disney World. But yeah, I mean, and there's so much stuff to do. There's like 21 or 22 resorts that you can visit. There's 4 different parks. But this is a CPQ podcast, not a Disney World podcast.
I was in caps that I was ready to listen to that for the next 20 minutes. No, that sounds lovely.
I mean, if I could sum up my life outside of work, it would be children, Disney World, cooking and gardening. There you go.
Not in that order, or maybe in that order.
Yeah, let's switch gear back to to CPQ, I guess. Josh, I heard that you're known as the project savior. What's the how do you do it, and what's the key that that makes it makes you successful?
Well, my first question is, who gave me that nickname? No. But yeah, I wouldn't deny it. I guess about the last 3 or 4 years, I have developed a reputation for coming in to help troubled projects. So I'm kind of scared to admit this in a recording, but I haven't kicked off a project in that entire time because every project I go in is in some phase of progress already. Something's happened, whatever it is, could be a people problem, could be a process challenge, could be a number of things. But they usually look to a more senior resource to come in and just say, help us out, whatever that is. Maybe it's stronger leadership, maybe somebody just, left. And so that's cool. It's fun because I think when you come into that type of situation, everyone's already ripe for change. Meaning, because thinking back to earlier in our conversation, right, getting organizations aligned, getting people aligned is very difficult. But when something's going wrong, people are generally ready to be aligned, right? They're just looking for a way to get aligned. And so my secret sauce, it's really simple, is I listen. I'm like, I don't want to oversimplify it, but the first thing I do on every project in this situation is the same. I conduct one-on-ones with everybody I'm working with, both project side and client side. And I really take the time to have genuine conversations, learn something about those individuals, learn what makes them tick, learn what, upsets them, learn what their challenges are. And just to make it kind of fun, I give everybody a Christmas wish. And I say, I'm not going to necessarily grant it, but like, I want to know, like, if you like, you really like didn't have any boundaries or rules to adhere to, like, what's one thing you would like to see changed, right? If you could have it tomorrow. And so I do this. It takes a couple, it can take a couple of days, a couple of weeks, depending on the size of the project, because there's a lot to learn when you come in, right? But almost always when I go through this process, the problems I'm solving become very clear very quickly. And I usually make rapid process improvements, and everyone's right to accept them because all I'm doing is I'm giving them what they wanted. But sometimes I feel like it's when you're mid-project, or there's a number of ways we can get misaligned. I make it sound simple, but it's easy to get misaligned between a team and a client, right? Sometimes you just get stuck in your own way, and sometimes it just takes that new face coming in with fresh eyes to say, hey, look, I've talked with all of you. This is the problem. You all told me this, right? And it's really easy from that point to say, try this. And then you make a process change here, you make a process change there. And I find almost always everyone's attitudes get a little better, kind of through that process, because they're seeing change, they're seeing improvement. And then at some point, right, you've got to deliver, right? So you got to be good at what you do. But that's it. I wish I had more to kind of add on to that, but it's a lot of listening, a lot of taking time. And I really want to emphasize the word, being genuine through that process, right? When you're taking the time to build relationships, sincerity is, I feel like, one of the most important things we can convey as a person, right? So being like, how do we not be sincere? Be late to meetings, multitask on meetings, cut meetings short, don't let people actually finish what they're talking about. I really try to avoid those types of situations because you're building a rapport with somebody, and it's really important you do it the right way the first time. And I feel like that's part of what's made me successful doing that.
That's great. That's great stuff.
Do we got time for one more question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we do, right?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, Tat, it's gonna be for you.
Oh,
You ready?
Let's
yes,
go.
I'm ready.
You've been doing this a long time. What keeps you going? I'm curious. Like, where's
You know,
your motivation come from?
I think it's just being a consultant. I think that's because I'm an engineer by trade, so I like to solve problems. And being a consultant, when you walk into every company, even though you may think that you're doing the same thing over, it's not, because every company has a different, different culture, even the same problem. Sometimes it calls for different solution. So you always have to come up with different solution, but a lot of times on the fly. So, it's very exciting to say, okay, every day, when I go to work, I know I'm doing, I know the list of tasks I'm supposed to do, but how to do it could be different. And most of the time is different. So, being a consultant, I think is kind of exciting. Um, just so like I said earlier, I mean, I really can't keep a job. If I have the same job and go to the same office every day, I probably would quit in about 2 or 3 years. I wouldn't be able to stay in the company for 10 years if I'm like a regular employee, for a regular company. It's just being a consultant and meeting different people, meeting different challenges. That's definitely what drives me just to want to stay in this line of work. It's the people. I think it's that, and the problem that I face every day. It's always a challenge. That's exciting to me.
I love that answer. Yeah. Maybe that's what keeps us all going.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm still a consultant. So.
And it pays well.
That's right.
Tiff, how did we do? I was going to say, I noticed we had a couple of minutes left, but I just want to take a moment to say thank you both for having me on. I think it's really great what you two are doing. Anybody who's in this space, I feel like benefits from these podcasts, right? It's a great way to learn about what we do in a way that's not, difficult to understand, right? It's very just real conversation about real things. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, great. Well, Josh, thanks
Oh,
for joining us. This was
yeah,
wonderful.
Josh, thanks for joining us today, and looking forward to maybe join us again in the future.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys. Cheers.
so for those listeners out there, we're Pierce Washington. We do everything quote to cash. If you want to contact us with questions, inquiries, how we can help you, you can find our contact information in the show notes. And we look forward to hearing from you.